All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Orange Crush podcast presented by Chick-fil-A. My name is Grayson Mann alongside David Hood. David, a really weird week has progressed since we last spoke on this podcast. A lot of rumors on social media, a lot of firestorm, this and that, lots of information being overflown into the public space and the college football playoff. In the midst of that, where do you want to start today with your disgusting Oreos over there? We were talking beforehand. He's got orange Oreos, and I think it's the most ludicrous thing of all time.
I was calling it a Clemson Oreo, and I haven't had one before. My kids had them from Halloween. They were on the table. So I think my wife called them, and they're just like an Oreo. Anyway, let's start with the college football playoff. And the fact that we've had a fun couple of days watching football. And remember on the last podcast, I said, watch out for the teams that have been on a bye. Major League Baseball has a problem with it. The division winners seemingly get beat. Braves, Dodgers, you can point to it. Guess what? Top four seeds, all out. No more conference champions in the playoff. Ohio State flat out laid the wood to Oregon. Penn State, like we knew they would, beat up on Boise State. Of course, Texas survives Arizona State and Cam Scatteraboo. I could say that name like 1,000 times. And then in a game that we just watched, Notre Dame, I told you on the podcast, Notre Dame has a little something for Georgia because defense travels. And that defense traveled against a kid that was Gunnar Stockton making a start on the big stage in the Sugar Bowl against that bunch of dogs. Come on, man. It was good at times for Georgia. It was bad at times. You know, they can hang their hat on the fact that Notre Dame probably had less than 230 yards of offense, 88 or 90 yards passing, and they still lost.
Yeah. You sometimes do some of the right, and we've seen this before at Clemson. You do a lot of the right things, and you still find a way to lose. And I think the real turning point was that kickoff return that set up the second half. And I didn't think Gunnar Stockton in his first start played particularly bad. I thought he actually gave Georgia a chance. It's just Notre Dame's defense. We've watched a lot of Notre Dame football, especially in these big moments, and you just see them get physically overwhelmed in spaces. Most recently, I think the last college football playoff appearance, it was against Alabama in the COVID year, you knew from the jump that this was going to be a mismatch. So to see them flying from the first play, you knew this was going to be something. And Riley Leonard, I think it sort of reminded me of the strategy when you played the old Nick Saban defenses. You needed a mobile quarterback that could extend plays, and you started to see that trend with Deshaun Watson. And Riley Leonard, how about a performance? Even though they weren't very efficient in the passing game, made the plays they needed to. And we have Notre Dame, Texas, Penn State, teams that we haven't really seen that often in the college football playoff semifinal. I'm so happy about it. I love seeing new teams. I think that's what this expansion era has brought us. It's great.
It's fun. And, you know, the SEC's they've got one team left. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Everybody was, you know, kind of making these big, bold predictions. But, you know, if you had to handicap it right now, is Ohio State the favorite to win this thing? Based off of what, you know, you saw the other day, what you've kind of seen out of them. I mean, goodness, that team flat laid it to Tennessee. And then they go out there and go out to the Rose Bowl and just beat the brakes off of Oregon. And, you know, we've said all year that's the best team that money can buy. They really are. And Ryan Day may be back in the good graces of Ohio State fans. So, you know, they instituted a 12-team playoff for money. We know that. But it was also supposed to bring some excitement to it. Maybe back in the old days, maybe the top four teams, you know, now they're gone. Now you've got who knows what seed is going to wind up winning this thing, 7 and 8, who knows. It's just fun. It's fun to watch.
It'll certainly create arguments in the future when the committee will meet once again next year, and you have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, those teams sort of battling it out. 5, 6, 7, 8 battling it out, and maybe the 8th seed is going to be the national championship, or be the national champion. With Ohio State looking like the best team. It feels like they had a switch. Maybe that Michigan loss, it was a necessary punch in the face. Ryan Day on the hot seat maybe the best coach in college football the way they're playing right now. My goodness. A different level has been unlocked. It's like when you use like a cheat code in an old video game and you just discover something brand new that you've never seen. And you're just like, wow. Because we went from, I'll sort of paint a picture for you, David. We're watching Clemson beat Stanford, and it's starting to get a little blowout. So the attention's starting to divert to the Arizona State matchup. You're sort of trying to do both. And then you go to look what's going on in the Rose Bowl, and you're like, wait, it's 7-0 already? And it just went, oh no. We go to the press room, and it's like 30-0 with the blink of an eye. So I think Ohio State's the favorite in my eyes. I think I like Notre Dame against Penn State, but that's just an early gut check. I haven't really done too much deep dive onto I'm going to start following your wave on these Fighting Irish.
Well, Penn State has the defense to shut down that Notre Dame offense. We know that. That's a pretty good Penn State defense. So that one's going to be a 20-17 kind of showdown there. Can special teams, Mitch Jeter, the South Carolina transfer. How about the fact that former Clemson and South Carolina transfers scored 17 of the 23 points out there for Notre Dame? Mitch Jeter, the former South Carolina kicker, Bo Collins, the former Clemson wide receiver. So that, and I think this just goes to show you what the transfer portal can do, because all of the points scored for Notre Dame were by transfer portal players. Georgia fans right now, their board is all about, can we add pieces in the portal? Kirby doesn't need to let this. So you got to kick recruits to the curb and add by the portal. So that's just kind of where we are. It's the new wave of college football, and and it's interesting because Clemson's added a couple of pieces in the portal, and we're not at 105 scholarships yet, and Clemson's at 87 or 88 scholarships. They're still over. Even with the Trey Williams, deciding to go into the portal. So who knows? Can Clemson get more out of the portal? Is somebody else? Is it going to happen in the spring? I don't know. We'll see. But like I said, welcome to the new world.
Obviously, I think in the spring too, there's going to be a lot of developments, at least with this Clemson team, specifically in a few positions. It feels like maybe spring will be a trial run for certain players. I mean, Adam Randall's going to get a shot at running back. The punter situation, Jack Smith probably will get at least a look in the spring. They may try to go find somebody there. There's a lot of factors with this Tiger team. And you mentioned a team in the portal in the postseason, Ole Miss in the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl. Like, what a lead in from the college football playoff to that. If you're watching that while we're recording, those Rebels in Jacksonville, where Clemson once was last year against Kentucky.
Yeah, and it's funny. I was telling Nikki earlier, obviously she's been off of work. We got home from Texas. My kids have been out of school, and I said, this is the longest Christmas break ever, because I'm not used to being stuck at home this time of year. I'm used to being on the road. You've gotten a little bit of a taste of it the past couple of years. You either leave the day before Christmas or on Christmas Day, and I don't like this. I don't like it at all. Let's get back out on the road on the holidays. That's all I've got to say. But, I will segue with this, talking about Clemson and the transfer portal. What kind of the next big decision for Dabo Swinney? And he told us the other day. He told me the other day, just kind of via text, look, I'm only concentrating on roster retention at this point. Okay, so now roster retention, I think they're still working on Blake Miller, the offensive lineman. I don't know that I've seen anything today. But now Swinney gets to turn his attention to his coaching staff. And there are just so many rumors out there. Whew. Somebody sent me a message a couple of hours ago. And then it was, hey, the rumors are Charlie Strong is in Clemson. Charlie Strong is interviewing. Charlie Strong is the favorite. And I'm going, Dabo is still in Boca, people. Like, calm down. Calm down. And it's interesting, that the other day, you kind of said who would be some names that you would call, and I just threw Jim Leonard and who else out there, that I would call Jeff Hafley, two guys that are in the NFL right now. And all of a sudden, somebody sends it back to me. Guess what? There's two finalists, Jim Leonard and Jeff Hafley. I'm like, no, there's not. It's just amazing how fast news travels and rumors get started. And you and I were on a text chain probably the Sunday after the game at Texas. And there was it a person saying, hey, this is what I've heard. And it's basically the same kind of rumors that have been floating around. CJ Spiller is going to move into an off-field role, and Mickey Kahn, and Mike Reed, and Nick Easton may be the defensive coordinator. No, Mike Reed's not getting fired. He's going to be the defensive coordinator. Joey Bats is retired. Like, it's just all this nonsense, right? And, I try to trace it back, and I'm like, where did it all come from? You had a recruit's father reach out to you last night, concerned over what he was hearing. Like, am I even going to bring my kid to Clemson in a few? Like, come on. You just don't realize how these rumors, and I think I've just traced it back that somebody started it on a message board that they've heard. We obviously got it by text. And if I reported every rumor I received by text or that I've heard, come on. Oh, my goodness.
Busy.
Dabo is still in Boca. I talked to a Clemson spokesman last night who said the conversations that you are talking about, as far as he knows, have not been had. Have not been had. That's all that I need to know. And so, you've got this one guy who's like, David, I appreciate you trying to shoot this down, but, I work in the motor pool, and there's a guy that works over in maintenance and cuts the grass, and he's got a guy who told me that this is 100% true, and he is always.
I think you need to go to Boca, David, and just turn the phone off. Might need to send you on vacation.
But let's talk about Garrett Riley for just a minute. Let's talk about Matt Woodford. Dabo didn't tip his hand on these things, right?
No, very airtight.
And here's kind of the thing too. Dabo's not on the phone with boosters going, yeah, you know what? I think I'm going to interview this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy. Because he knows the boosters are going to go out and say, hey, can't tell anybody, but here's what Dabo told me. Garrett Riley, very under the radar, didn't know about it maybe until about 20 minutes before everybody else did. I was given a little bit of a heads up. Sort of had an idea. I will guarantee you one person, maybe two, knows what's going to happen and who is involved in this defensive coordinator search and what will happen to the rest of the coaches. That's Dabo Swinney. And I would guess he has run it by his boss, Graham Neff, to say this is what I'm thinking. Graham Neff is also not talking to boosters and telling them what's happening. Graham Neff's not calling the media and saying, hey, here's 4 names to watch. So, and I kind of put this in the post last night. I think a lot of stuff is on the table. I think there's a lot of things to watch. You just got to be patient and not run with every rumor because, again, I'm telling you, Dabo knows, probably Graham Neff.
Those are your two. And we're just two guys speculating right now in terms of rumors. And I think last night, I think in terms of, I've been in this as an intern for two-ish, 3-ish years and then doing this full time now. This is the wackiest coaching search for a coordinator that I've at least been witness to, been a part of. David, last night, I mean, the amount of people that I think, especially on Twitter alone, having the claim to fame per se. And this isn't like a shot at anybody just because it's the nature of the business. But obviously you and I talked about on the podcast a couple days ago that you mentioned you had confidence that Goodwin had moved on. And that I think is pretty much a well-known fact at this point that the search is on for a coordinator, but a matter of who. I mean, we might see something that the Pope, for all we know, is interviewing tomorrow morning for a position in Clemson's staff, but it's up in the air. But I remember specifically you mentioned Garrett Riley and how airtight it was. And I remember the timeline very specifically. The announcement came that Brandon Streeter had been fired on January 13th. That was the day of the national championship with TCU. And then shortly afterwards, Garrett Riley is the name that's tossed. Garrett Riley's on a plane to Pickens, touches down, coordinator's hired, it's official. It felt very the continuity within their staff, it felt very smooth. And this feels very choppy, very rocky. And it's not anything that the staff is doing per se. I think it's just the nature of the frustration of this defense and just the nature of how this season ended that has caused so much animosity? Maybe I'm off base. I'd love for you to maybe chime in on that, but it just feels rocky. It's strange to me, is all I'm trying to allude to.
Whew, it is very strange. It's just hard to kind of put to say exactly how all this feels. But Clemson fans have been, recognizing changes need to be made, right? Almost from the time Wes Goodwin was hired, you go, man, is he a fit? A guy that's never called plays. He's been an analyst. He's really never been a position coach except for a time as a defensive backs coach. Now you're going to put him in charge of the linebackers. Does he have the personality to do it? And there are questions about all of that, right? And so Clemson fans have kind of seen how this has played out. You've seen Dabo get angry with him on the sidelines this year. And people then see what happens against Texas, and you go, man, if you set the edge four times, you have a chance to win that football game. But the defense just didn't look well coached. And so everybody recognizes this Clemson team has a chance to be really good. And so they go, but they want Brent Venables back, or Brent Venables look-alike in a lot of ways. They want that fiery guy. They want somebody good. And so, at this point that, we're an instant gratification society. We're a text message, Facebook Messenger, Twitter message society. Everybody wants that instant gratification. Probably not going to happen here. And I'm just telling you, Dabo Stolenboka, coaches aren't supposed to meet till early next week. Let's kind of give it maybe the week. I don't know. I've heard some things. We'll see how it all shakes out. But again, I know that Clemson fans are excited. I know that they want to know yesterday. And the guy that would, be able to tell you,
it's on vacation.
Not going to tell anybody.
I think, too, there's an understanding with this team, David, that in 2025, I think they have a chance not just to be good, but great, especially on the offensive side. So there's a sense of urgency from this fan base. And I think, obviously, with them back in the college football playoff, back in the mix, and especially with what we're seeing right now, we're not necessarily having a bye is the best path to a national championship, is that there's an opportunity here for Clemson to really succeed here. You bring back Cade Klubnik. You do really well in areas of need in the portal. Will Helt is going to be a massive boost for this defense, regardless of who is going to be the coordinator in 2025. So I think there's sort of you mentioned the instant gratification. There was a moment while I was driving home from Orlando after being in Disney for the weekend where there were signings being announced of who's coming back. Cade Klubnik really kicked it off, and everyone's just, the dopamines are going crazy. And I can't blame them, especially for being excited coming off a playoff season. So obviously the sense of urgency is there. There's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of uncertainty.
There should be.
Yeah, it's been well-deserved, especially given the SMU result. You're back in the mix. You see Dabo Swinney doing interviews behind a college football playoff logo. It feels like the 2010s again in that instance. So there's certainly an opportunity to upgrade. And I think that given Sweeney's track record with the last two hires, going outside the box, getting coaches that are nationally recognized like a Matt Luke, a Garrett Riley, I have pretty high confidence that Swinney can do it on the defensive side, given what he's shown in the last couple of years.
He can. And, somebody also said, hey, how do you put up with all this? Do you want the fans to just be quiet? Absolutely not. It's part of being a fan is, I'm not going to go out there and speculate a whole bunch of stuff, but feel free to throw it out there. The rumors can be fun because everybody gets excited about them. I would just caution, maybe don't believe every rumor that you hear, but that's part of the fun of it. That's part of being a fan is, hey, can we get this guy or can we get this guy? Or, this guy's name is being thrown out to the forefront. It's part of being a fan. Have fun with it, right? And that's what we've all got to do. I'm having a lot of fun with this college football playoff. Kind of wish I was still there. Kind of wish I was covering. In fact, I just said I actually texted Tim Beret, and I said, Tim, is Marcus Freeman, everybody knows Tim Beret, great Notre Dame guy, as well as a Clemson guy. I said, have you ever met Marcus Freeman? Does he seem like as good of a dude as he looks like? And he said, well, no, but I know the Notre Dame chairman of the board of trustees, and he says Marcus Freeman's great. And I said, well, Tim, then you and I probably need to go up this summer and spend a day with Marcus Freeman. And I got back in LOL, right? But I was thinking about my friends. I've got a few friends in the Notre Dame media who they got to, play Army in an NFL stadium. They got to play Georgia Tech in an NFL stadium. They got to play Navy in an NFL stadium. They got to host a college football playoff game at home in like 14-degree weather against an in-state foe they haven't played since the 90s or whenever, the 80s. Then they get to go to New Orleans to a Sugar Bowl. They get to go to an Orange Bowl in Miami. And if they win there, then they got to go back to Atlanta, where they've already played once this season against Georgia Tech, and cap it off. That's a pretty good postseason run for those guys. I'm a little jealous.
Yeah, I mean, I am too. I that sounds like a lot of travel miles. That's awesome. I think that's the best part of the gig. And I think Clemson fans want to experience that sort of rush of. That's what's fun about this college football. I've seen a lot of pushback about the neutral sites, but I think it's so fun to have a possibility of a team like Notre Dame playing in Orlando, Florida, playing Penn State. So it's just teams that aren't familiar with the geographic location and throwing them in uncomfortable situations that I think adding the home playoff game too, I think they've reached a good balance. I was pretty hesitant on expansion, David, and I know the games haven't been very good, but as a football fan, pretty good as a consumer, feel pretty good.
And I'll tell you, you hear my phone going off, and there's a reason that I didn't silence it, because, when there is a coaching search or you think there could be stuff happening, you listen. And one of my friends he doesn't bug me a lot, but he has been a little bit weirded out about this whole search. And he sends me a text message and says, well, an insert name of defensive coordinator. It is then. And I responded back to him and I said, it is, done deal. I'm waiting at the airport right now. So now I'm just going to start messing with people, I think.
I think that's irresponsible of you, man. That someone's going to get really excited. Someone's going to be like, oh my gosh, it's happening.
Nick Saban's the new defensive coordinator at Clemson. He's going to come and coach defensive backs and be the defensive coordinator for Dabo.
We got Steve Belichick. He's going to face Bill Belichick next year as Clemson's DC. Something wild like that. I mean, obviously with the search, a lot is ongoing. The podcast we want to thank you guys for tuning in. Obviously, that was ridiculous. I tuned in. I turned off my phone for a couple hours and checked the count, and I was like, whoa. Like, this is pretty cool.
Shout out to Mama Pickett, too.
I know. Shout out to her. I don't think she'll approve of your orange Oreos, though. Maybe she will. I don't know. Those look unsafe.
She sent me some. I mean, come on now.
Maybe she did. I don't know, David. Do we want to add anything final on just sort of because yesterday was crazy. It was something else. And I think, obviously, in terms of the defensive coordinator search status, the rumors, I think that one thing is probably certain is that the search is on. It's just a matter of who and just a matter of when. But patience.
Yeah, just patience. I mean, it's you just got to wait and let Dabo do his thing. And at some point, we're going to know. And again, just don't fall for every rumor out there. No, Newt Rockne is not still alive and hanging out with JFK Jr. and Elvis and waiting for the chance to come and coach Clemson.
That sounds like out of a bad movie.
It does. I mean, come on. And it's hard to have patience because you see all this stuff going on in the playoff. And, I did hear from somebody last night who, kind of cautioned me in all of this and in saying, hey, there's still teams playing, whether it's the NFL or college. It wasn't specified, but sometimes you have to be a little patient and let it play out. And I think that says a lot. Teams playing. One
of the last couple hires, they had to wait till the national championship was completed for them to go get their guy. So there are some factors that are still playing out on the gridiron that maybe
I can throw my name out there for defensive coordinator. I will blitz every play. I'm not going to drop 9 men into coverage. I might send 9 men and only leave 2 in coverage a large part of the time, I'm available, and I'd come cheap. I'd
I hope
750 grand.
I hope they
I'm
hire me as an OC, and I'm going to beat that blitz every time.
there.
Speaking of beating the blitz, Ole Miss just made it a 7-0 game in the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be close. No Malik Murphy for Duke, kind of going with a backup guy. Yeah, I don't know if that was going to be close.
David, one more note before we wrap up here, and this isn't about the defensive coordinator side of things, but Clemson basketball, the season is beginning to focus into the main picture of Clemson athletics here. Another team, I think, and I think we saw this yesterday, and Brownell alluded to it, is that they have a legitimate formula. But I think Jaden Zachary, I know we have chatted about certain instances on this team, but I think that Zachary is probably one of the better on-ball defenders I've seen in a long time. There is something innate about it is up in the air of whether he will get the ball on any certain play. And then Dylan Hunter, 6 steals. This team feels very complete. And obviously the Memphis and South Carolina results were disappointing from that standpoint, but not bad losses to have on your resume. The ACC is a lot weaker this year. I think there's a prime opportunity for Brownell to maybe be a double-bye team in this ACC tournament. Really,
how fun would that be?
Was that? Oh yeah,
yeah, that would be fun. And you know, here's the deal. And I'm not going to throw you under the bus. I will throw somebody under the bus. But this team, in a lot of ways, when Chauncey Wiggins plays well, Clemson plays well. When he doesn't have a great game, sometimes it can be a little bit of a struggle. If they can get some consistency out of him. And, you know, the great thing about yesterday is Ian Shefflin wasn't Ian Shefflin. Whether, you know, some sickness stuff going around or whatever. Not a great game from him. And they still found a way to win. You know, they still have the guys. It's a deeper roster this time around. You're not relying on one or two guys. Jaden Zachary, I can remember the first time I saw him was right after he transferred. I was in Little John Coliseum, and Jaden came walking over. And I thought, you know, dadgum, you look like a linebacker. You know, not the weight of a linebacker, but kind of that bigger, broad-shouldered, you know, longer arm guy. I'm like, hey, you look like a linebacker. And he said, yes, sir, I hear that a lot. When he's physical and playing good defense, and I think that was probably a large part of Clemson's win yesterday against Stanford was that second half on-ball defense. I think they did a great job of kind of denying Stanford a lot of things. This team has a chance. I'm excited to watch the rest of it, and they got the Calgary coming up this weekend.
That's right. And they're doing it in different ways, too, because you have Locken being one of the better rim protectors that this team has seen in quite some time.
Yep.
And I will say, I have been critical, and you and I have talked about Chauncey Wiggins' play. I've seen it as inconsistent at times, and that when it's on, it's really on. And I think he's a really good shooter. But sometimes when the offense is exactly clicking, he takes himself out of the game with some pretty poor mental errors. But Clemson's undefeated when he scores double digits this year. And he is
17 yesterday, right?
That's right. True X factor when it comes to their success. He will be someone they have to heavily rely upon. And hey, if I'm proven wrong, then maybe we get to go to we get to go on a trip on March. So that's fine with me.
And then let me say this too. Now that we've kind of turned the calendar and we're in January, and I know that you know, we're going to have a lot of stuff happening between now and then, but baseball is going to start in about 6 weeks. And if you haven't seen the video of the Clemson baseball team getting their gifts, go watch that one. That is really good stuff. Some of those gloves and bats and stuff like that, really sweet. It's kind of a new deal that we're going to get Eric Bakich on here to talk about the deal that they've done with this company and the swag and the turnaround time on some of the stuff that they get. It's a little bit different than something we've seen in the past, and I think it's going to be good. Softball will be getting going. Lacrosse will be getting going. Gymnastics will be getting going. It's going to be fun.
Absolutely. And speaking of gifts for baseball, they really got some gifts in the transfer portal. Some really, really elite talent coming to Tigertown to see if this team can be another appearance in the regional or maybe another super regional or a trip to Omaha. Certainly a lot in store from us on this podcast. We'll have more on the status of Clemson's defensive coordinator search. Junior Day is going to be in a few weeks. So a lot of different aspects coming together. Crossover season truly never dies. It's going to be awesome here at TigerNet. David, any final words before we wrap this one up?
Yeah, talking about Omaha, I mean, I was out with the team in Omaha in 2010, and I've said this before. And I remember turning to, I think it was Aaron Andrews, who was doing the sideline reporting for ESPN at the time. Jack Leggett was standing there, and I said, this is maybe the most fun I've had ever covering college baseball is coming out here. And if I can do this once every 2 or 3 years, I'll be a happy camper. And then back.
It's been quite some time. So maybe 2025 is the year. Happy New Year to everybody. Happy holidays. Stay safe. Just kick butt on those New Year's resolutions, whatever that may be. Guys, thank you as always. Shout out to everyone for tuning in. Thank you. Take care.